Today's rebuild is going to be tackling the Carolina Panthers. Instead of 5 years, I'm only going to give myself 3 because the only quarterback I'm going to be using is Baker Mayfield. Here are the playbooks I will be using in this rebuild. The offensive playbook and scheme is the same exact one I've been using the entire time on Madden 23, but I'm going to go back to Disguise 3-4. I used in Madden 22. I had been using Quarters 4-3 and the Buffalo playbook for defense, and I've seen other people make it work, but for whatever reason, I could just never really get it to work consistently. So we're going to go back to this one and see how well this one goes. And obviously on offense, we will have quarterback Baker Mayfield and running back Christian McCaffrey, who is a 97 overall X Factor. We've got some pretty solid receivers in DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. Oscar Laviska Shenault is a 75 overall star depth trait. And we have Terrence Marshall, who is only a normal depth trait, but he's still pretty young. On the defensive side of the ball, we will probably have a little bit of work to do since I am switching it from a 4-3 to a 3-4. We don't have any backup middle linebackers, so hopefully no one gets seriously hurt this year. Well, let's go ahead and jump right to the end of Season 1 and see where this team stands. And we managed to sneak into the playoffs in Season 1 at 9-8. We had the 6th ranked offense in points per game, but the 31st ranked defense. And this is the reason that I use the Tampa Bay playbook. Baker Mayfield throws for 5,000 yards, 39 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. How did McCaffrey do on the ground? 1,100 yards and 14 touchdowns. And receiving, DJ Moore, 1,200 yards and 11 touchdowns. Ian Thomas caught 3 and over 1,000 yards. Robbie Anderson with 8 touchdowns. How did we do on defense? Who led the team? Corey Littleton with 133 tackles. And in sacks, Brian Burns got 9, and interceptions, Xavier Woods got 2, Dante Jackson got 2, Jeremy Chin got 2, and Keith Taylor got 2. Not much of a shock, but we do lose in the wildcard round of Season 1, 42-24 to Dallas. And Super Bowl 57 goes to Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, 40-31 over the Browns. So the first year of the Deshaun Watson experiment seems to have gone pretty good for the Browns. And here in the re-signing period, I brought back Baker Mayfield on a 3-year contract, but we can't afford to bring back anyone else. We only have $630,000 in cap space, so I might be trying to trade some people to free up a little bit of cap. I think the first guy we're going to move is going to be Robbie Anderson. Yeah, we'll eat $9 million in dead cap, but he's set to make $21.7 million next season. He's an 81 overall, which is actually a decrease. I think he was an 82 or an 83 before the season started, so he is starting to regress. And we have sent Robbie Anderson and a 5th round pick to the Bears for a 2nd round pick in this upcoming draft. And I don't have much space to work with even after the Robbie Anderson trade. We only had about 11 million, I guess, to throw around. So I'm offering a contract to Sean Murphy Bunting, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce your name, but both of these guys should help the defense if either of them sign. And it looks like we land both of them, so that is probably my entire free agent class for the first season. With that free agency class, I'm probably going to need to draft pretty well, but we have pick 20 in the first round. Let's see who the Steelers take with the number 1 pick. They take quarterback Matthew Hunt, which I think is who I took in one of my other franchises. Okay, so I need to stop using the week 1 rosters that EA makes available because it doesn't actually auto-generate the rookies. That's nice. And with our first round pick, this is not going to be a flashy selection, but we're going to take left guard Trevor Kendricks out of Alabama. Not a scheme fit, but he is going to be a hidden depth trait with an 86 strength rating, and he had some pretty good blocking ratings as well. And I just simulated to the pick that we got for trading Robbie Anderson, and the Seahawks took the receiver I wanted to take, literally the pick before us. This guy is also not a scheme fit for our defense, but I think Jaleel Roach, a right outside linebacker out of Boston College, might be the best pick here, so we're going to go ahead and take him. He will also come in with a hidden depth trait. And a 3rd straight player that is not a scheme fit, but we do need a center, so I'm going to take center Ken Goldberg out of Clemson. It says a projection around 3 to 4, but I really like his ratings, and he will also come in with a hidden depth trait. So if you've never watched my rebuilds before, the way I do things is I pick the first 3 rounds, and then I let the computer pick the rest. But we only had 1 pick after that, so the computer took a middle linebacker that's a 63 overall. But in the first round, Trevor Kendricks is a 75 overall left guard, Jaleel Roach is a 74 overall outside linebacker, and Ken Goldberg is a 72 overall center. All 3 of these guys have hidden depth traits. And here's the receiver Seattle took from me right before we got to pick. Yeah, 97 speed. He would have been a great addition to this team, and they sniped us right before. And now here is the starting offense headed into Season 2. Baker Mayfield is now a star depth trait. I don't know if he was a normal or a star before last season, but now he's a star depth trait with a 78 overall. Christian McCaffrey is down to a superstar depth trait. Not great, but he didn't have a fantastic year. He did have 1,100 yards and 14 touchdowns, but I guess that wasn't enough to keep his X factor. The defensive side of the ball might be a little interesting. We are starting a 64 overall middle linebacker, so that could be really bad. We did draft Jaleel Roach, who is a hidden depth trait. We have Shaq Thompson, who's an 85 overall. We added Sean Murphy-Bunting. There are a lot of good pieces on this defense, but I think this middle linebacker spot may be a massive weakness. But I don't really have any cap space to make any trades, so let's go ahead and just jump to the end of Season 2 and see if this defense is completely and totally horrible. And the end of Season 2, we are 7-10 with the 23rd offense in points per game and the 28th defense. The defense actually got a little bit better. This season, Baker Mayfield throws for 4,700 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. On the ground, Christian McCaffrey ran for 1,300 yards and 14 touchdowns. And receiving, DJ Moore had 1,500 yards and 7 touchdowns. Terrence Marshall, 1,100 yards and 11 touchdowns. What about over on defense? Jaleel Roach, our rookie right outside linebacker, led the team with 121 tackles. In sacks, Brian Burns got 8.5. I believe his contract is coming up though. And interceptions, Dante Jackson led the team with 4. And the Baltimore Ravens win the Super Bowl 24-21 over Seattle, who was led there by Offensive Rookie of the Year quarterback Brad George. Alright, but this time we have $75 million in cap space. We went in last time with 20, and I had to give most of that to Baker Mayfield. But let's figure out if we can bring any of these players back. And I did lose a few people here. Brian Burns really had no interest in re-signing. Derek Brown had very little interest and also refused the contract. And so did Jeremy Chin. So we lose 3 pretty solid defensive players, which sucks. We'll try to bring them back or try to replace them. And then Laviska Shenault, he is going to hit free agency. I'm going to see if there's an upgrade. If not, we may bring him back. And here are the 5 contracts I am offering in this free agency period. Obviously, wide receiver Justin Jefferson is the top priority here. I think he's a bit of an upgrade over Laviska Shenault. Also trying to bring in Ed Oliver and Jadeveon Clowney. We may not get Clowney just because Jacksonville was much higher on the list than us. I already paid Jadeveon a ton of money. Also offered a contract to strong safety Cameron Curl. We have no safeties in this free agency class that fit our scheme, so I brought in one of the guys that seems to be pretty good and young. And then Patrick Queen, who we are currently outbidding for the Baltimore Ravens. So let's go ahead and jump to the next stage and see if we land any of these guys. Cameron Curl is still there, and we land Jefferson, Ed Oliver, and Jadeveon Clowney. So we don't land one of the other guys. I don't even remember who. Yeah, Patrick Queen ended up going back to Baltimore, even though we had a top offer above them. I guess he just had higher interest to return to Baltimore. Alright, so now I've upped Cameron Curl's offer a little bit. Hopefully he'll sign with us now. And I've also added Jordan Hicks. He is a scheme fit, so he should be better than what we had at linebacker last year. They are both gone, and they have both signed with us. I'm jumping to the draft now, but Baker should have a pretty good year. We've given him now DJ Moore and Justin Jefferson. Granted, I think the last time he had an LSU receiver, it did not end well. And the Minnesota Vikings have the first pick in this draft, so let's see who they take. They will take quarterback Russ Marsh out of Marshall. We don't know much about outside linebacker George Quigley, at least not in the key ratings. We do know he has A play rec, A power move, A stamina, B to D awareness, and we know his combine traits. He's not super fast, but he is one of the best outside linebackers in the draft, which is a position of need, so we will take left outside linebacker George Quigley, who has a normal depth trait. And here in the second round, I'm now looking at middle linebacker Josh Greenberry out of Auburn. He has B block shedding, C tackle, B zone coverage, and he was one of the fastest linebackers in his class. He is not a scheme fit, but I'm going to hope that does not matter too much. He does come in with a hidden depth trait. And here in the third round, we're going to take right guard Spencer McGrath. He is a day 3 projection, but he has A awareness, A impact, and A pass block. We will take McGrath, who will come in with a hidden depth trait. And here's the draft recap. Quigley comes in with a 73 overall. Obviously, he was a normal depth trait, but Greenberry comes in with a hidden depth trait, and so does McGrath. And then the CPU took a 67 overall free safety and a 66 overall defensive tackle. And before we jump into our third and final season, I've made one trade with the Arizona Cardinals to acquire Noah Fant and Isaiah Simmons. So now we have a new tight end and a new middle linebacker. So with that trade, here is the starting offense going into our final season. Baker Mayfield is a 79 overall star depth trait quarterback, but we've given him now Justin Jefferson, and he still has DJ Moore, who are 98 and 92 overall, still has a 99 overall Christian McCaffrey, now has an 86 overall Noah Fant, and his offensive line looks pretty solid. And then over on defense, we added Jadeveon Clowney and Ed Oliver. We obviously just traded for Isaiah Simmons, We signed Jordan Hicks. He will back up Isaiah Simmons and Greenberry. And I think we have a solid defense. I think this is probably the best defense I've had since I started this rebuild. So now let's simulate season 3 in the final year of this rebuild. And after this, I imagine the Panthers would probably move on from Baker if they can at least make the playoffs and make a deep playoff run. And it looks like as of right now, all of our roster moves have paid off. We went 11-6 and we've made the playoffs. We have the number 5 offense in points per game, but the number 23 defense. That is still the best defense I have built in this entire rebuild. They finished 31st and then 28th. Baker Mayfield throws for almost 5,200 yards, 37 touchdowns, and 15 picks on the year. Christian McCaffrey runs for 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns. And receiving DJ Moore, 110 receptions, 1,400 yards, and 10 scores. Justin Jefferson didn't even break 1,000 yards, which is a little surprising, but he did have 7 touchdowns. How did we do on defense? Isaiah Simmons led the team in tackles. That is exactly what I expected. In sacks, Jadeveon Clowney got 19, and in interceptions, Isaiah Simmons led the team with 4. So now that we're through all the stats and everything, let's see how quickly this video is going to end. Do we make a Super Bowl run, or do we lose in the wildcard round? We get bounced in the wildcard round thanks to what looks like a fourth quarter comeback from Washington. They scored 21 points in the fourth quarter alone and beat us 35-31. And Super Bowl 59 goes to the Chicago Bears, 25-13 over the Bills. But that is going to end this rebuild. I know this is a shorter rebuild than normal, but he is still a 79 overall. I don't think he's gone up now in 2 years. He's 30 years old. He's going to start regressing. I think at this point, the Panthers would move on from Baker Mayfield. So we end the Baker Mayfield experiment in Carolina with 0 playoff wins, but 2 playoff appearances, which I guess is okay, but obviously not what we were expecting or what we wanted. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you guys next time.